Hey, this is Jim at Broadfield. Thanks for joining us again this week for another Broadfield Liquid Lunch, our dealer webinar with a special guest you can see on the corner of your screen here. We have Bryce from Telestream joining us today. Bryce,
Thanks
you
for
have
having.
a big announcement for us, right?
Yeah, we're here to announce and introduce our second generation of Wirecast gear.
And we'll get into that in just a moment while we give our dealers a chance to join us. I'm cracking open another beer today, as I do on every show. I was looking for some stuff from the West Coast, but the distribution out here either isn't very good to get the good stuff and those craft beers that are popping up all over the place out by you, right? So this week, I have one that is brewed in Ohio, but bottled right here on Long Island. It is Did We Just Become Best Friends by Hoof-Hearted Brewing. So this is a series of beers that they do where they combine two different hop varieties into a single IPA brew. This is Amarillo and Simcoe hops. Give that a shot. Bryce, I poured you a glass even though you're not here to share it with me, you know?
Wish I was there to share it with you. Yeah. How
We'll
was
have
that one?
we'll have some
IBUs.
in the fridge when you visit us, yeah.
There you go.
So this one we got 8% alcohol by volume. I
Ooh,
figure if you've
potent.
done the drink on the job, you might as well do it right.
Right?
Again, we invited Bryce to join us because we're going to be introducing the new revision of Wirecast gear. From a product introduction, are we giving this an official Wirecast gear 2? Are we just going with new model numbers? What's the company line on that?
So we're calling it the next generation of Wirecast gear, and it has new model numbers, right? So the original ones were the 110, the 210, the 220, which was retired for the 230 to add outputs. And the new ones are the 310, the 320, and the 420. And we'll
Yes.
talk more about the differences there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bryce, I know this product family and this introduction is real personal for you. You've really, rolled up your sleeves and been knee deep in this project for quite some time now. So we're excited to see it finally come to fruition. When are we expecting to see the formal introduction being done on the Wirecast gear? And when do we see all these new versions actually being launched and then shipped?
So the formal introduction was today,
There we
actually.
go.
So, yep. And then we're going to be shipping about mid-September is what we're planning on right now.
Very cool. So as you can see here, we are still keeping the product family with 3 products. Those new part numbers become the Deer 310 at a $59.95 MSRP, the Deer 320 at $69.95 MSRP, and the Deer 420 at $89.95 MSRP. Bryce, can you give me a little rundown on the differences between these 3 new models?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of looking at 2 different tiers of hardware here. So the 300 series is slightly less powerful than the 400 series in that it doesn't have as many dedicated hardware encoders built into it. The 310 is going to be an HDMI model,
Okay.
with the 320 being an SDI model on that. I only needed 1 or 2 streams kind of a workflow. And then the 400 series, that's for that's the ultimate machine, right? That's the one that's going to be able to do 4 simultaneous hardware encodes, so you're not even touching your CPU usage at that
Sure.
point.
And now
Now,
you're saying that the 300 series is slightly less powered than the 400, but we should point out that all 3 of these models are greatly improved performance-wise versus the current Wirecast gear models that we've been shipping for the last couple of years.
absolutely, yeah, we're talking faster clock rates on the
Yep.
CPU, higher turbo boost frequencies on the CPU, more cores on the CPU, transition to Xeon architecture.
Awesome.
It's substantially faster. And one important thing is it has much more powerful GPUs across the board.
Absolutely. So with the 310 and 320, we're going with that Xeon architecture with the integrated Intel graphics, which itself has, grown quite a bit over the last couple of years. With the 420, we're taking that same Xeon architecture, but now we're adding a dedicated GPU with the NVIDIA Quadro cards.
Absolutely. And one
Okay.
of the big differences about or reasons to go for the Quadro, especially in a streaming environment, is they have an unlocked hardware encoder on the Quadro ones, right? So
Yep.
if you're looking at consumer GTX cards or our new RTX, you're limited to two simultaneous NVENC encoders. With Quadro, it's unlocked. And so with our testing on this machine, you can do four 1080p 60 encodes at the same time without even looking at CPU usage, right? So
Cool.
you add X264, you're going to be bumping up your CPU with each one. So
Yep.
this is the 420 model is definitely the powerhouse.
And I would imagine that that additional horsepower really plays into NDI workflows as well.
Absolutely. So another great thing about all of these units is they do have dual NICs in them. So they're dual 1 gigabit NICs. So you can
Great.
actually bridge the connections and then connect, say, all your NDI gear on one local network, and then use the other Ethernet adapter for your actual output for your stream.
That's very cool. And the other big addition that you've made with this new generation of the Wirecast gear is you've upgraded the Titleist Live software, where all three models are now going to include Titleist Live Complete. That itself is about $1,000 value, if I'm correct.
That's correct. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so previously we were looking at, you get present on one and then present plus sport and then complete only on the high tier.
right.
A lot of our customers really had varying workflows and varying needs. So just putting one type of New Blue titler with its feature set on different tiers, it wasn't very conducive. So we opted to put complete across the whole range. So everybody has access to all of their titling needs.
That's awesome. So again, with the next generation of Wirecast gear, we're getting a better hardware infrastructure, more processing power, and additional software with the latest and greatest version of Wirecast Pro installed on every Wirecast gear system, as well as the complete version of the new Blue Titler Live software. Uh,
Yep.
you already mentioned some of the differences with the Gear 420. I think it's important to kind of show the backplane of everything that's available to users that are using the system, because that CPU, GPU, but also that input-output capability is really a great feature that makes this a professional production system.
Absolutely, and yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So, looking at that backplane there, some of the first things you'll notice is that there is XLR audio inputs, and those are actually XLR TRS combo jacks.
Awesome.
Those are dedicated interfaces, so they're not adapted to the internal audio headers like you would see for like a front panel changeover from to analog. So these are fully balanced inputs. Then you also see, being the 420 model, you'll see some extra SDI connectors on the back plane that's not actually part of an extension slot like a PCI Express card.
Yep.
And so we made that change because in the 230 model of Gear 1, you had to lose an input channel in order to do program output, just because that's how the capture card worked. So in this scenario, you now actually gain an extra input channel and have a dedicated program out for a total of 5 inputs on the 420 model.
That's awesome. And again, you have the CPU and GPU to handle that. It's great to add the inputs, but if you don't have the horsepower under the engine, obviously it's going to be a much different thing. The other thing that I noticed too is the Wirecast gear, the next generation, you've gone to a full 2RU rack mount.
Yes, the previous one was 1.3.
Okay.
The new one is a 2RU, and it's been designed front to back for front to back airflow to be mounted in rack mount situations, and actually dissipate the heat very well. We've had it third party thermal tested, and everything is great with it. Yeah, so it's great at dissipating heat and staying cool, which keeps your fan speeds down, which is also important for non-rack mount environments, right?
Sure,
Where you want
absolutely.
something a little quieter if it's going to sit somewhere in your studio or at home.
No, absolutely. And I mean, heat and noise, I mean, these are always issues in any production environment. And I think by adding that extra room and that form factor becoming a little bit more uniform, it's going to seamlessly fit into a lot more applications. I know with the XLR audio on board, to be able to plug into a house of worship soundboard and have all that professional I/O capability is really going to be a big feature of this next generation of Wirecast gear.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can address those as either stereo in Wirecast, or you can address them as dual mono. The controls are in Wirecast to image those however you want.
That's great. So Wirecast gear is optimized for capture. Again, we already talked about the rack-mounted design. As even though it is a rack-mountable design, it is still quite portable with just a 2RU form factor, available in either HDMI or SDI with that XLR TRS combo audio inputs. It's also optimized for production. So here we're going to start talking a little bit more about the software integrated into Wirecast gear. The most important of which, of course, is the full version of Wirecast Pro. So the Wirecast gear is a complete turnkey Windows computer system that is designed and built to get the most out of Wirecast Pro. Bryce, what are some of the differences in the way you've designed the Wirecast gear systems versus taking Wirecast Pro and just putting it on any old machine?
Those are some great questions. So first and foremost, we've gone through Windows and actually made a bunch of optimization settings that are important for live streaming workflows. I won't get into
Windows
too many of the
isn't going to install an update in the middle of my show?
That's a great question, because that's one of the biggest problems with Windows, especially Home and Pro editions.
Sure.
So Wirecast Gear, the second generation, it has Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC. So that's the latest Enterprise version that's out. And that does give you a lot more control over your update schedules. So you can push things out. And it's less likely to come down on you in the middle of a broadcast. Awesome. We've also gone through, and we actually have a custom capture solution in this for our capture hardware. So you actually see those show up in Wirecast as gear capture inputs, and we've tested those. We're really happy with those. So custom hardware for that. It's just all around. We've gone through and balanced a ton of Windows settings to make sure that it's optimum performance and not going to scale back your CPU clock rates when you least want that to. And of course, there's some BIOS settings that are really important as well. Sure. You'll see, so it's set up to be simple and easy to use, but there's absolutely some more configuration to unlock more potential if you want. A great example is the Gear 420 model. It actually has the integrated video disabled to make it easy to use. Because one thing that pops up when you're using a machine like this is you need to make sure when you have multiple graphic adapters and whatnot, you have the right one selected as your primary one and all that. So all those settings are just ready to go out of the box. You don't need to find your own capture card. You don't need to configure Windows and pick your primary graphics adapter. It's just ready to go.
And one of the things we've always liked about the Wirecast Pro software is even though the software runs just as well on both a PC and a Mac, by putting it onto a Wirecast gear system, even if you're comparing it to the 420 at $89.95, it's really very comparable to what the cost of the software on a well-configured Windows workstation would be.
Absolutely, yeah. If you add up all the components of an individual machine, and then look at that price point, then add in the software, you're really close. Yep. So this is it's not a huge markup over what you could do yourself to build it, and you'll know it's supported. We have Gear Care extended warranties available. That's above and beyond the 1-year warranty. So if it's a mission critical application, this is absolutely a great value for anybody.
Absolutely. And when we talk about Wirecast and we talk about Wirecast gear, it's great to be built for production, but it's also built for streaming. With multiple simultaneous encodes, you can take your live production and stream it out to anywhere that your audience needs to be watching that video.
Yeah, the multiple simultaneous encodes is really important. Wirecast doesn't artificially limit any of your encoding abilities, right? So when you're looking around at various solutions, especially the more embedded solutions, they'll say you can do absolutely this many and no more, right? And you can have this many inputs and no more. What's great about the gear unit and Wirecast in general is, if you're not using as many resources here, you can use more over here. Right. For example, if you're not using all 5 inputs, you're not doing multi-viewer outputs, you can probably get away with a few more encodes, right? Cool. And so with like MOV encodes for your program archives and your ISO recordings and replays, you can do more than 8 simultaneously, especially with the NVMe OS storage drive, which is lightning fast, and then the SATA SSD as well.
I'm glad you brought that up because the next slide here is talking about the difference in the higher performance hardware of the next generation of Wirecast gear, and we didn't talk about that yet with the NVMe storage. So with the NVMe storage, you're really putting in the fastest storage solution available today.
Absolutely. That really contributes to the overall snappiness of the system. You're not waiting on your disk I/O because it's being pegged from, your multiple encodes and your ISOs and replays, right?
Yep.
And you can generally offset that by having an additional drive, which it does. It does have a SATA storage drive as well.
Absolutely.
But it absolutely makes a big difference having that NVMe operating system drive.
Yep, and again, we can't stress often enough the processing that's built into the next generation of the Wirecast gear. Between the Xeon processor and the NVIDIA Quadro GPU, you really have upgraded that hardware to offer our dealers and our customers an enterprise solution for live production and streaming. Wirecast gear, you already mentioned that second drive. Not only are you getting the NVMe SSD system drive, but you're also getting a 1 terabyte SATA SSD drive for media storage. And Wirecast gear still has USB 3 ports for additional storage as well. So for your high-end production customers, you can easily connect a USB 3 RAID to offer that additional storage capabilities also.
Absolutely, and there is a USB-C port, and they're all USB 3.1 compliant.
Great.
So you're going to get the greatest speeds.
Absolutely. And now if you're adding from the live production and streaming to a post-production environment, that really becomes important and comes in handy. Bryce, you showed us before the XLR TRS balanced audio inputs. What was one of the big reasons for upgrading the audio capability in the next generation of the Wirecast gear?
It was mostly customer feedback, right?
Yeah.
So with part of the designing the second generation gear, we took all the feedback from the first one and prioritized that, mostly based upon the number of requests, right?
Sure.
And of course, XLR and TRS audio was a very popular one. People want to integrate it into their existing workflows where they already have a mixer and they already have somebody running that. They don't want to necessarily use some of the more advanced functions of Wirecast that allow audio automation through audio interfaces. They just want to bring in 2 channels of already processed audio from a mixer. And that was a very important feature going forward.
Absolutely. Now, we've been using a Wirecast gear system here with a Roland USB interface audio mixer. Now, it's important to point out, we already talked about those USB connections. We can continue to use the exact same setup with the new next generation of the Wirecast gear. But you can also integrate it now into some of your pro audio environments with that XLR and TRS connection. And then more inputs and outputs. I know the Wirecast gear 310 is giving you 4 HDMI inputs. The 320 is 4 SDI inputs. And the 420 expands that, as we showed in the diagram earlier, with 4 SDI inputs plus the additional SDI I/O to create up to 5 channels of captured video, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Now we're going to go into some basic setups, starting with the Wirecast gear 310. This is perfect for our dealers who are working with their customers who want to get into live production and streaming, but want to work with what they've got. This bundle can be as simple as a Wirecast gear 310 with iPhones using the Wirecast Go application and some HDMI cameras or a PTZ Outage camera, all feeding into the 310 HDMI inputs. We've put together a basic bundle that's going to include that Wirecast gear 310 with the X keys and a PTZ Outage SDI camera that also has the HDMI output, all for about $8,000. Next, Bryce, I'm going to let you introduce this one because the one-man band bundle, I actually have 2 different versions of that bundle. Option 1 is via Ethernet.
Yeah, so there's a couple options here. Some people really want the dedicated Ethernet option just because it's more scalable. You get power over Ethernet with a lot of cameras.
Yep,
It's a one wire run per camera. But then other people want the SDI input,
sure.
which is or HDMI input, which is certainly a possibility there. My preference is generally the Ethernet option, and Wirecast is very flexible with that, so we can ingest NDI. Or if you're not looking for NDI workflows and you want to kind of stay away from the upcharge that comes with some NDI devices, we do support web streams, so you can ingest your RTSP feeds, RTP feeds, all kinds of different sources in Wirecast.
Awesome. And it's also important to remind our dealers as well that Wirecast also has the PTZ Outage control built right into the Wirecast interface. So if you're connecting these cameras via Ethernet, I can actually take full control of the cameras.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great advanced feature that really helps on the one-man band situation, right?
Yep.
So we've integrated virtual shots within the PTZ cameras. So what we do is we take the presets that are stored on each camera, and you can assign those presets to a shot in Wirecast. So just switching shots will actually move the camera for you automatically. And there's some collision stuff in there to keep it from moving when it's live, unless you tell it specifically to do that. But a great workflow for that is, sports. You got your high wide, you switch to that, you click your other one in preview, it moves the camera for you, you switch to that, switch back. It's very advanced, and you can definitely do it with just one person.
Absolutely. Our dealers who are selling into the sports market, they're going to be used to that fast action and being able to go to these presets very quickly. But our other dealers who are selling into the house of worship market too are running into the experience all the time where one volunteer who is very techy and very knowledgeable might set up these presets so another volunteer can come in and handle the controls and still be able to create a nice production. The next bundle we have is what we're calling the hybrid, where it is SDI and HDMI with NDI devices all on the network, all feeding into the Wirecast Gear 310 or 420 systems. And these bundles are going to come in place right at about $12,000, allowing you to offer the Wirecast Gear production system and the cameras, two PTZ Outage cameras, to your customers at a very affordable price. And then finally is the Sirius Pro system. This system is going to add a USB audio interface, the ability to work with these different input and output options, whether it's through an SDI camera, an NDI camera, but also with the CPU and GPU processing power of the Wirecast Gear 420. This is really Telestream's ultimate production system where your customers can benefit not only from the workflow itself, but from creating a full in-house live production professional system. What I thought was interesting about this bundle, Bryce, was that you're showing the new Blue Tidal Alive being run from a separate computer system. Does the license that's included on Wirecast Gear allow me to install Tidal Alive on another machine as well?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So the new Blue Tidal Live Complete version that comes with all Wirecast Gear units, that does allow 2 activations per license. And additionally, you can go into their activation manager on their website with your new Blue account that you'll create when you set up your machine, and you can actually deactivate individual machines if you need to move it to another one or another laptop. And one of the greatest benefits of that is you're offloading the actual rendering of those titles to another machine. You're not adding that to the load on your production machine, which is, as many people are aware, when you get that CPU usage up real high, the 80% and up, you can start dropping frames, and that's just inherent to the way computers work.
Absolutely. So, I think it reinforces the value of what you're bundling in these solutions. Tidal Alive Complete is, again, a $1,000 bundle solution that's included in the box with all 3 models. So whether we're talking about the Wirecast Gear 310, 320, or 420, $59.95, $69.95, $89.95, you're getting that full version of Tidal Alive Complete with all 3 of them. The 310, again, is your HDMI production solution. The 320 is your SDI production solution. And the 420 gives you that additional SDI capture and program output, plus the dedicated NVIDIA Quadro GPU card. With the bundles that we've talked about and with the offering of these systems, I also want to remind our dealers that the Etch Keys controller is now custom designed and optimized for use with Wirecast Pro and, of course, the Wirecast gear. Bryce, I know you have worked with the guys at Pi Engineering to create this controller to really give a professional production interface to the Wirecast gear systems. Now, when we look at the production quality of the Wirecast gear, it's obvious how important this controller is to kind of be bundled in with the solution.
Absolutely. The X Keys XK128 controller with the Wirecast key kit, it's sold as all-in-one. You don't have to put the keys on yourself like some of the other X Keys options. Right. We worked really close with them to make sure that happened that way for ease for our customers. But it drastically simplifies the operation of Wirecast. All the important buttons are there, much like any other control surface. And it's actually custom designed for our layering system, which is very unique to Wirecast. It does not borrow the old school mix effects bus kind of operation. It's just layering, right?
Perfect. Awesome. So again, Broadfield, we have the price sheets now. We are accepting orders immediately for the 310, 320, and 420. We're expecting to see these shipped in mid-September?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. If our dealers have any questions on the Wirecast gear next generation, call your Broadfield salesperson at 800-634-5178. Bryce, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to introduce some of the other shows that we've got coming up. Thank you again for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So coming up with Broadfield, every Thursday at 1 p.m., we're hosting these webinars, and next week we're going to introduce some of the Red camera kits, talking to you about not only the Dragon Edge kit and the Gemini kit, but some brand new kits that Red is just ready to announce specifically for the educational market. On 8/29, we are going to be introducing the brand new Wowza Clearcaster. They are making some hardware improvements and reintroducing the Clearcaster encoder, and we will have some more information on that. And then the first week of September, right after Labor Day, as we do in the beginning of every single month, we'll be talking about September specials and promotions. Thanks for joining us again this week. Until next week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, have a great day.
Broadfield Distributing is a value-added distributor of live production, streaming, video editing, and storage products. We only sell to resellers. We are always looking for new dealers. So call us at 1-800-634-5178 or email sales@broadfield.com. You'll like doing business with Broadfield because we make it easy to do business.